someone asks, what is your strategy to secure government contracts in the defense industrial base? Our strategy is not to pursue contracts. Our strategy is to pursue the technology, to be the very best we can be, to build the very best products and be the very best customer support group that we can be for our customers. And like the State Department, the work followed.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. Today I'm speaking with Ken Speaks, founder and CEO at RMCI, the leader in aircraft HUMS, health and usage monitoring innovation. Ken, thanks for chatting with me today.
No, thanks, Dave. It's good to be here.
Great. Well, first of all, can you tell us a bit about your background and, what led you to, create the company RMCI, and what does RMCI stand for?
I could give you my background. I'm the product of Alabama public education all the way through university. I studied engineering and business, and I took a commission through ROTC to be an infantry officer. So working several assignments in the Army from infantry, ended up working technology programs in the Pentagon. And that's where I got to see the real impact of technology to the industrial base.
That's great. Did RMCI, as you finished your time at the Pentagon, then what next? You're like, hey, let me go start a company?
Well, some of my time was at the 101st Airborne Division, so I had a good deal of experience. I'm flying with my feet hanging out the doors in Hueys to being a comptroller managing all the flying hour program for the aircraft at the 101st Airborne Division. From my time at the Pentagon, I got a call from some Army scientists who were working Army aviation in Huntsville, Alabama. They asked me to come help them solve some problems for their rotorcraft fleet. And I was pleased to do that. So I left the Pentagon, started RMCI, and provided services to the U.S. Army. It was our first big launch, and hired great, bright people to help with that effort. And we did that for the Army.
Great. What is RMCI? Does it stand for anything, or is it just?
Initially, because of my experience in flying hours, it was Resource Management Corporation International. So we're going to help manage the resources of aviation. But we realized it became more of a technology company, and we just shortened it to RMCI. My daughters will tell you it's Romeo met Cinderella ice skating.
I love kids. So your initial vision was a services, just with the Army, providing services on helicopters, like data services, if you will.
Research and development, operational systems. The Army had invested in vibration monitoring, or HUMS, for their aircraft. And it was a great pioneering effort. They fielded a lot of vibration systems on Army aircraft, but needed help analyzing some of that data. So we started doing some analysis and turning that data into knowledge, and helping the Army with that. And along the way, we ended up supporting the Missile Defense Agency with similar scientific research projects, the Department of Energy, the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, NASA. In fact, we wrote a special software for NASA. We called it NERDS, NASA Rotorcraft Diagnostic Software.
Very good. And so how has that evolved? And for those that aren't familiar, what is now RMCI, and what industries you serve, and what do you do?
Well, after being successful with the 3,000 helicopters for the U.S. Army and other government agencies, we had the ability to create a better device, modern electronics, lightweight, and highly effective. So what the Army pioneered, it's over 20-year-old technology. It's on the Black Hawks, it weighs over 100 pounds. So we're able to develop a system that's extremely lightweight, and it's very powerful, and that's critical for aircraft is weight. So that's what we did. When we had the opportunity, I pulled the guys in the conference room and said, hey, we've been doing this for a few years. I think we have the ability to compete in the commercial market space, or as a products company. And they all said, yeah, we're in. So we developed our own HUMS.
Very cool. I saw, a note that said, helicopters, 1 million parts rotating rapidly around an oil leak, waiting for metal fatigue to set in.
Very well said.
So I imagine HUMS is, helping out with that. So, how has it revolutionized maintenance practices? I mean, what's the key secret sauce? How does it change the way, from responsive critical failure to fix? Like, how's that working?
Wow, huge difference. I can give you an example. The San Antonio Police Department has hired a lot of former military, even special operations guys in their aviation fleet. they saw our system and wanted to try it. They said, "Hey, Ken, we're getting new helicopters. I tell you what, when we get those, we'll put your system on." They wanted that extra margin of safety. When we put our system on the new aircraft, within a few weeks, we told them, "Hey, you got a bad gearbox, bad transmission." And they said, "Well, these are brand new aircraft. I'll tell you what, we'll keep an eye on it. Thanks for telling us." And a week later, we drew pictures of the gearbox and how it was failing, where the initial failures began and how it was propagating through the gearbox. And they said, "Yeah, oh yeah, okay, thanks for telling us." 2 months later, they had multiple chip events and landed precautionary landing in a field. When they recovered the aircraft, the OEM discovered that it was indeed a faulty transmission from the factory. But we knew that 2 months in advance. That's a big change in the way helicopters are being operated. Saves money, saves time, could have saved a precautionary landing. But that's one example.
Yeah, that's very cool. So you lot with the helicopters in the military, but then you've been able to, dual path that into the commercialization, the commercial side of helicopters.
Indeed. And a lot of the commercial operators are former military. So we get along quite well.
Yeah, great having a small community. And so it's really it's mostly preventive maintenance. It's seeing the train wreck happening before it actually occurs.
That's one of the biggest differences. HUMS stands for Health and Usage Monitoring Systems. The health is the health of the aircraft, so we can determine that and monitor the health of the aircraft. The usage part is flight data monitoring, how the aircraft is being used. Are they flying too high, too low, too fast, too slow? And are they exceeding an angle of bank or a too rapid rate of descent? All that is recorded in the flight data monitoring, or FDM. That's the usage part. But there's a benefit when you combine the vibration and the health sensors and the flight data. You can get some tertiary benefits like maintenance. So with the vibration sensors, we're able to determine track and balance. So we're able to balance the rotor systems on aircraft. And for helicopters, the blades get out of balance, kind of like a ceiling fan. If you've ever seen a ceiling fan out of balance, well, those have to be balanced. So our system does that. And most HUM systems do the rotor balance, but ours does a great deal of other maintenance functions.
So what else is it? I've seen a box, like in one of the pictures, it looks like a little box. Is that, do you have one there, like what it looks like, or?
Yeah, this is it.
That's it.
This replaces, again, with the sensors, over 100 pounds on the Black Hawk. And this does your flight data monitoring. So it has AHRS, altitude heading reference system, built into it. And it does the mechanical diagnostics of the entire drivetrain. And it does your maintenance functions, engine vibe checks, rotor track and balance, shaft balance, et cetera. So all that's in one box, and it's mounted in the aircraft. So you don't have to go to the closet and get a bunch of handheld equipment to strap onto the aircraft to do maintenance. You just pull out your tablet, and there's your information you need to make your adjustments.
So you just plug into that, remotely, like with a coax or something. Yeah.
Or it's wireless. Our box is a wireless hotspot. So the user can operate wirelessly with the tablet directly to the box and not have to get any cables out. If they're concerned about data security and a wireless network, they can plug directly into the box with the Ethernet cable. And they can also download the data with a thumb drive or an SD card and plug it into their computer. So there's multiple ways of downloading the data. And something unique about our product is that the data can be viewed in flight. It doesn't have to go through the internet to an OEM or another group of scientists to review. The operator gets to see the data at or in the aircraft.
That is convenient. What is the, you said it monitors like the oil and, the second piece of it, I forget how you actually coined that, but how does it do that? I mean, are you pulling in actual fluids? Are you, how do you get the health of the systems into the box?
For newer aircraft, we can tap into the digital bus and get engine data, flight data, whatever's on the digital bus. It pulls into our system, and we combine that with the sensors that we use, largely vibration monitoring sensors. So these give the ability to listen acoustically to parts that human ears can't hear, And we can hear these emerging failures through the vibration sensors, again, weeks, even months in advance. And our experience on the 3,000 Army helicopters has been beneficial in allowing us to determine what that sound is. So is it a bearing? Is it the main gearbox? Is it the epicyclic gear? Is it tail rotor gearbox, hanger bearing? So listening through vibration sensors, we're able to determine the health of the aircraft and detect emerging failures and also perform maintenance events.
Wow, that's fantastic. Just the different vibration, you can source it down to a specific system or subsystem.
That's really cool. And it's a capability that hadn't been previously enabled to detect epicyclic gear failures, for example. We're able to do that. Here's one. I mean, it's not really a bar bet, but having the opportunity to work with these great scientists, I started to hear a little whine in my automobile. So I put the system on my car and went to the dealer and told them, I think I need a new wheel bearing. And they laughed at me. They said, what makes you think that? And I said, well, I've been driving for a while. I heard noise. They said, well, we'll check it out. We got some special vibration equipment. It's OEM equipment. It was a German car. And they strapped it up and they ran it and they drove around the block and they came back and said, there's nothing wrong with your wheel bearings. We could put some tires on the back for you if you'd like. And I said, well, let me think about that. And I put the system on and identified this specific bearing and went back and said, hey guys, I want you to change that bearing. And they go, oh, sir, that's $1,000. And, and I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with your bearings. And that's what came out. So, so we can supersede some of the OEM systems and surprise a lot of mechanics.
So is this application, could you use it on other aircraft besides rotorcraft or other vehicles?
Oh, yeah. Automobiles, marine purposes, fixed wing applications. One customer wanted us on the fixed wing aircraft. Again, we can do propeller balancing and we can do structural monitoring. So we can put structural monitoring sensors on the aircraft to evaluate the health of the aircraft, and fixed wing predominantly is structures, but also engine monitoring, engine vibrations, the engine gearbox on the King Air, for example. It's got the turbine engine with a gearbox. This customer was most interested in monitoring the landing gear out of all the stuff that we do.
Navy fighter jets.
You're getting close. You're getting really close because it was not on ship. It was ground landings. They said there's the pilots that are coming in hard and slamming on the brakes and it's damaging the landing gear. And we want to know which pilot is doing that. So with our monitoring system, we can monitor pilot behavior. Again, it's beneficial for pilot training, but also to record the damage that may have occurred to the aircraft over time.
Fascinating. So rotorcraft, I mean, that is your primary, it's helicopters, right? That is where you're seeing your biggest market industry that you're serving. What are the challenges they're seeing, just in that industry writ large? And then how are you guys hoping to address those challenges?
The rotorcraft industry is one, they're very sensitive to weight. They have a lot of maintenance that are required for rotorcraft. And rotorcraft are a little more risky. There's more moving parts and more opportunities for failure. So it's more important to have that mechanical diagnostic on rotorcraft. But the customers typically will flee to it because of the ease of doing the maintenance. They can do rotor track and balance in a few minutes versus a few days. Not all aircraft take a few days, but there's some challenges out there. So we solve those problems with the operator, and that's attractive to them. At the same time, the National Transportation Safety Board, FAA, EASA, Transport Canada, and other airworthiness bodies are leaning toward the benefits of HUMS for rotorcraft, and are strongly suggesting operators use HUMS. The first was the IOGP, oil and gas operators. They have their own industry standards, and that requires HUMS for overwater aircraft. So that's where the civilian sector started getting into HUMS initially, then the military followed. But the benefit is the mechanical diagnostics, weeks, even months in advance of any other type of warning or precautionary landing or other event, and the ease of maintenance. And at the same time, checking that FAA block for flight data monitoring, which supports the safety management systems.
Open the compliance side of it. Yeah. When you say ease of maintenance, why? I mean, because it's not doing the maintenance. it's just because you're recognizing it before it breaks, or why is it ease of maintenance?
For example, if you wanted to do just your main rotor balance, you're flying, it feels a little wonky. Instead of telling the mechanic, take the aircraft down for a day of maintenance, take some maintenance test flights, recover the data, then make adjustments to the rotors to see if you can smooth it out and make it more balanced. With our system, it's always on and it's always monitoring the balance of the main rotor. So when the pilot lands, he can pull out a chart or tablet on his computer and tell the mechanic, hey, you need to add 3 grams of weight to the yellow blade. And they can make that adjustment without having to have a whole day of dedicated maintenance event. Also, the mechanic doesn't have to go to the closet and pull out handheld equipment to use what they used to use for rotor track and balance. That's ease of maintenance.
Oh yeah, no, that's pretty significant. Yeah, I had no idea we could be that specific. So, is it just primarily commercial U.S. or are you in other countries selling this product? How proliferated across the rotor wing community is HUMS?
Well, it's a mandate from DoD for the Department of Defense. It meets 2 blocks, the condition-based maintenance plus, and that's because if they know the actual condition of the aircraft, they can move toward condition-based maintenance, maintain the aircraft based on its actual condition versus a OEM established time before overall. So that's the goal of CBM Plus, and it's a DoD mandate. And the data required for that comes out of HUMS systems. Also, the DoD has mandated the Flight Operations Quality Assurance effect, and that's the flight data monitoring for some people call it Big Brother, monitoring pilot behavior, but it's basically monitoring how the aircraft is being used, the flight data monitoring or the usage part of HUMS. So the military calls it MFOQA, Military Flight Operations Quality Assurance. So that's how the military are implementing it, and that's what their requirements are. The civilian operators, again, oil and gas have their own requirements as an industry. Other operators are starting to see the benefits. It is costly, but when they see the benefits, they're electing, hey, I want to put that, like San Antonio Police Department. They made the decision, hey, we're going to put this on our aircraft for the extra margin of safety. Now they're getting all the other benefits as well, reduction in maintenance man hours, parts costs, and so forth. I can give you an interesting story. One of our civilian MRO, maintenance repair overhaul guys, was working on an aircraft. He called me, he said, Ken, I've got an aircraft in here. Do you have a system for an AS350? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, is it fully STC'd? And I said, yeah, of course. He said, well, could you get it over to me? How long would it take you? I said, well, I could have one there Friday. Why do you ask? He said, well, I'm working on this guy's helicopter, and I told him what your system does, and he said he wanted it. And I said, well, Mark, that's great. Did you tell him how much it cost? And he said, he didn't ask. So when people that are flying their own aircraft and find out what the benefits are, the cost becomes somewhat less relevant when it's compared to your life or the cost of rolling up an aircraft.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So that little box, it's a pretty penny. That's what you're saying.
Well,
is there more that comes with it besides that? The software, I guess there's a whole.
The software, the sensors, the data warehouse, we secure everybody's data and record that. So if there's an incident a year later, we can roll back the data to review everything that happened. So yeah, there's a little more to it. But it's going to save more money. The actual cost reduction in your maintenance man hours, parts cost, enforcing warranties, and detecting problems before they get worse. You could change a $10,000 bearing instead of a $350,000 transmission if you're able to detect that and find. So it is relatively expensive, but it's value. You're saving more money by having the system than it costs by far.
Well, they're not cheap aircraft or cheap to operate. So
the Army told me they're paying over $500,000 a piece for the system they have on Blackhawks. So I don't know the actual price tag, but that's what they told me, and I believe them. Our system is nowhere near or less than half of that for Blackhawks by far. So
that doesn't seem too expensive to me. Really, for like this kind of maintenance, I would think, why risk it with your, especially if you have like a personal or a fleet of helicopters, why risk it?
Indeed. And that's my philosophy. And that's why we got into this industry and decided to build something that we knew we could make a difference.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So international customers at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anywhere there's a helicopter, people need this type of equipment, and sophisticated operators are interested in looking for it. From Europe, Asia, we have about 20 to 30 aircraft flying in Central and South America with our system. Canada, yeah, firefighting helicopters in California to air ambulance and East Coast and around, law enforcement all over. Big international and foreign military. They see that the U.S. had these military mandates for these types of systems. Foreign military want to be on par and come up with those standards as well, but they're looking at more modern systems that are lighter weight and less costly, and that leads them to us.
So have you partnered, like any big partnerships that you have around the horizon?
Yeah, we've announced our partnership with Kaga Electronics in Japan. It's a publicly traded company in Japan, and they're representing us to the aircraft industry in Japan through not only the Ministry of Defense, but the civil operators and manufacturers as well.
How about any of the primes in the next gen, helicopter type, FARA, FLRAA, the different? Are they ever looked at putting this into like the requirements of having this, where you can compete onto like new vehicles?
Perhaps. I haven't seen a requirement for HUMS from the Army. The U.S. State Department had a requirement, and we just saw it on Fed Biz Ops. So we responded to the request for information, which led to more requests for sources sought and proposals. After 2 years, we were pleased to get a phone call from the State Department, and they had selected our system among everything else. So that was a huge validator for a small company of the benefit of our technology compared to other systems that are been in the market longer, and even other systems that were newer. They selected our system. So now we fielded nearly 100 kits for the U.S. Department of State, and they decided to put Blackhawks. And so that's kind of interesting. We had so much experience with Army Blackhawks, the State Department started purchasing Blackhawks from the Army and using them for State Department purposes. So now we're on a lot of Blackhawk helicopters. And again, we have a great deal of experience with Blackhawks. So that was refreshing. And the Army decided to divest some Blackhawks. So they're being used as Firehawks, firefighting and energy and other purposes. So we're doing quite well in the Blackhawk market with our system. I was able to tell the program executive officer for aviation some years ago. He was interested in our system. He came out to the office, and I said, the Army's got about 2,000 Blackhawks. We can take 80 pounds each off of every aircraft and have a more modern capability, modern electronics, no obsolescence issues. But besides that, think about it. 2,000 aircraft, 80 pounds each. We can take 80 tons of weight off of your Blackhawk fleet and give you a more modern capability and do it at half the price. I can't tell you what he told me in response to that.
Well, it sounds like a pretty simple response. One excited, I'm sure. Well, you're, leading the charge in, health monitoring for Rotorcraft. Where is this going to evolve the next 5 to 10 years? Are you kind of there, or how do you see both what you're going to offer and what the industry is going to want?
We're on the leading edge of technology. So one of our goals is to stay on the leading edge, incorporating, again, structural monitoring sensors, fluid debris sensors, other types of sensors we're able to incorporate. Move into the fixed wing fleets, C-130s, King Airs, Caravans, and so forth. But I think that the savings on Blackhawks, I don't want to be presumptuous, but at 3 to 5 years, I think that's going to resonate with some decision makers, and they can take 80 tons of weight off the Blackhawk fleet. So I think that's one direction that we're headed, hopefully. And again, we stay ahead of the technology and meet the government requirements like we did for the State Department. I think that's where we're headed. At the same time, we're growing in foreign military sales and civilian sales. We were careful in developing the system purely for the commercial market because we left, all of the stuff we did for the Army, we kind of left behind. And when we started fresh, we decided to go after the civil market because the military had already selected systems. So we said, well, okay, they've got what they've got. Let's build something lightweight that's highly effective for civil markets. Because of that, we don't have an ITAR issue or dual use issue. So we're able to sell to helicopters around the world, civil, foreign military, State Department, other government agencies.
That makes it handy.
And we're on about 14 different types of helicopters now with full approvals from FAA, Transport Canada, even EASA, and Army airworthiness approvals and other types of airworthiness release. So I think from here, we're at the growth stage. We've developed the technology. We continue to modify and improve the technology. But what's ahead is about an $8.6 billion market for aircraft hums.
That's a small TAM. That'd be great. So how many aircraft are you on right now?
Oh, I don't know the number. We
Operational.
shipped about 100 to the State Department. So in the hundreds, not in the thousands yet.
Okay. And your targeted growth, do you have trying to increase 20%, 30% per year, or just hitting the markets as you can?
That's really interesting. Like State Department called and, they wanted 100 systems. Well, that's one contract for 100 aircraft. We still support small operators. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I've got, a AS-350 and an MD helicopter, can you help us? Sure. Everyone that has a helicopter or an airplane, we want to let everyone have the benefit. So we don't make a business decision to say, hey, we're only going after the large contracts.
Right.
Number one goal is the technology. And someone asked, what is your strategy to secure government contracts in the defense industrial base? Our strategy is not to pursue contracts. Our strategy is to pursue the technology, to be the very best we can be, to build the very best products and be the very best customer support group that we can be for our customers. And like the State Department, the work followed. We didn't know anybody in the State Department. We didn't solicit information. We had not marketed to them. We just saw their requirement and responded to it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, just build it and they will come, right?
That's the old adage.
Reputable. I mean, it's fantastic.
We're very pleased to work with outstanding customers in defense, State Department, other military and other government agencies, and our international customers as well. It's a pleasure to work with folks that are getting the benefit from this technology. I think we have outstanding customer support. So with the phone rings, we're talking to people overseas any time of the day or night. And if they got a question, we have answers. So we're pleased to talk with folks.
Yeah. And just for, I'd say, kind of as we're running out of time here, last question, but for aspiring entrepreneurs that, would like to do something in the defense industrial base, as you started there and grew your company, what's the best piece of advice you'd give to them?
Well, I looked up the word entrepreneur in the dictionary and it said a person who takes risks. So for someone coming in, I would say break the mold. Plan to break the mold. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Don't do or focus on what's been done before. Don't focus on getting a government contract. Focus on breaking the mold with your technology, your abilities, building a team that can respond to requirements effectively, and take risks.
Take risks. That's a great perspective. Too many people try to do the same thing. So, well, thanks, Ken. I think that's all we're gonna have time for today. But before we wrap up, if people want to, get a piece of this action, get a HUMS device on their Rotorcraft, or just learn more and follow your company, how's best to get in touch with you?
The easiest way is the internet. It's RMCI-INC.com. That's Romeo Met Cinderella Ice Skating -inc.com. But hey, we're old school. Feel free to give us a call. Stop by the office. We love people to come in. We give them tours, show them actual components that come off of aircraft and how our system works. So yeah, telephone calls always welcome, visitors welcome, and we got a website out there.
Fantastic. It looks like you got a great backdrop too.
That's General Dick Cody. He's a retired 4-star general. He was also Special Operations Commander of the 160th Special Operations Regiment. And I was working late one Friday afternoon. I picked up the phone, and after having several copier machine salesmen, I picked up the phone and smiled and said, the RMCI may help you. And yeah, it's Dick Cody. I want your system on my helicopter. So we were very pleased to put our system on this aircraft, which is a Loach, a Vietnam era Hughes aircraft, and it's serial number 4. The first 3 serial numbers were non-flying prototypes. He has the actual first flying Hughes aircraft, Cayuse, and he's flying with our system on it.
Well, that is pretty cool. Well done, sir. Great story. Really enjoyed it. And let's stay in touch. When we get down to Huntsville, we'll come by and say hi.
Dave, would love to see you. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Ken.